conversation, we're going to focus on how ideas can actually change the world. And often we come up with things, as they say, ideas are in the air, and all you have to do, the imagery that's conjured up is that they're there, and all you have to do is jump up and grab one, because you think of something today, you don't act on it, and a few months down the line, a year down the line, a couple of years down the line, you come across someone that actually actioned a similar idea, thereby making you obsolete, and the ideas that you feel were so special, obsolete and irrelevant. All you have to do is dare to do it, because if it remains in your head, if it simply remains in your head as a dream, then it just doesn't. How ideas that have been implemented, particularly across the African continent, to resolve and answer our own challenges have changed the world. So that's what we're looking at now, and we're joined by Nelisa, who is a Communications Officer at Activate. Good afternoon, Nelisa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Azania. Thanks for having me.
Now, I find the work that you do at Activate really, really fascinating. It's almost as if we need a lot more of these sort of hubs and gathering of the minds. But quickly take us through what Activate is all about.
Activate is really a network of young people in South Africa who are interested in contributing towards making South Africa a better country for themselves and those around them. So a lot of them are involved in different kinds of projects where they change in how people live around them. And what makes the network so special is the idea that so many young people, regardless of where they come from, can find a connection based on the fact that they're South African and they're interested in making a contribution towards developing the country.
So they come together for what? An exchange and share.
So how being on Activate works is that when you first join in, they go through a training program, which is a residential program. So they spend about 10 days together out in Cape Town or Cape Town or out in Gauteng, where they get taken through a leadership program that kind of equips them with understanding how the social-political atmosphere works in South Africa, helping them to understand how they can contribute to how government works, how policy works. They can take them through innovation, how to look at how to take their ideas and actually action them, and how to basically not look at a problem and immediately prescribe a solution, but to try and interrogate things and fit things on their head. So they get given those tools to help them understand that. There's a level of exploring the sense of self. You know, the program takes them through understanding where they come from, what their past is, what their present is, and where they want to go. And that part of the program is really, very special, because that's where a lot of young people get to connect with it. Because even though, someone might come from rural Eastern Cape or from the suburbs in Joburg or, somewhere deep in Durban, then here they are connecting with someone they never imagined that they would, because they live here in South Africa and their life experiences sometimes, or sometimes people just have no idea that, how others live. So that's really what the program is about.
Wonderful. So this hopefully will, and then deliver, it will spark their minds, it will deliver creativity and solutions around challenges that we have, as of course this is the generation that will lead in future. So really exciting initiative. The numbers have swelled and grown over the years. But now let's talk about creativity, right?
Yes.
And how we can use creativity to actually change the world.
Yes.
How do you believe that, because often we think of creativity as confined to just the arts or to certain industries, and yet it's something that we do with every single situation.
Yeah, the idea is that obviously an idea that never develops really remains just a dream in who lives in. So that's where when we talk about innovation is that process where you turn that idea into something that actually satisfies a need. For example, some of the activators in the program, they live, in their in their communities, there are all these challenges, but, sometimes people have ideas on, I'd love to change my community, I'd love to do this, but they never really know how to action them. So without the action, really goes into it. For example, one of the 5 ideas that I mentioned in that I came across was the iCow app. The app is really for small dairy farmers who live in very rural areas in Kenya, for example. Where it helps them to keep off their livestock by using a very, 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 very simple basic phone. So where you register each animal with the service, and then you get SMS reminders when to milk it, when to immunize it, and tips about nutrition. So,
That's amazing. So obviously the dairy farmers were having challenges around keeping track and keeping accurate records of what is going on with their livestock, and this app helps them to do that.
Yeah, and imagine these people out there, most dairy farmers won't have a powerful technology or computers to keep track. So this is really a basic way. And to give you another example, for example, one of our activators out in Gauteng, actually, in Palm Springs, she came up with an idea for a lunchbox project at a specific. What's happening there was that while the government was issuing a free lunch every day, the school noticed that kids weren't picking up the lunch, so a lot of the food got being thrown away.
Nelisa, I'm going to put you on hold quickly because the line is really failing us, and we want to hear these wonderful ideas, so we're going to try and get her on a better line. But we're chatting to Nelisa Nkulwana, and she is the communications officer at Activate. You can follow them on Twitter. It's ActivateZA. That's the handle. And of course, join this group, keep up with what it is that they're doing, because it's a network of young leaders, and they want to drive change in this country. They call themselves change drivers. So they want to change the situations that many people across the country find themselves in for the good of the public, for the good of South Africans. So they come together as these young thought leaders. They activate their curiosity and they activate their order to resolve certain challenges. And what some of the lessons and some of the knowledge that they share is around innovations and how certain challenges have been resolved on the continent, the ideas that have come out of Africa that have actually changed the world. And the first one that we were looking at is the iCow app that Nelisa was telling us about, which is really targeted at small-scale dairy farmers. They're in remote areas. And they don't have access to high-performance technology, but they certainly need to keep accurate records of important details about their livestock, how gestation, when to immunize, all sorts of things, and this app allows them to do so. So let's welcome Nelisa back as we look at other innovations, other ideas that have come out of this continent that have actually changed the world. Nelisa, welcome back. I think we can hear you much clearer now.
Yes, I can hear you much better as well.
Oh, perfection. So much clearer. It's like, why were we punishing us? So, this particular app, you said, where did it come from? The iCow
it was actually created by a Kenyan farmer. Out there, because he was actually experiencing the issue himself as a farmer. So he was like, so he went out and looked for funding. So he was funded by a UK-based foundation, which helped to make him, to realize the idea. And if you notice, like with a lot of these ideas and beyond the ideas that we're talking about, most of the time it's just one little thing that needs to be tweaked to make something into a real innovation. Because the cell phone is there, the cows are there, and you need information without having to look for big powerful technology. It's just one simple thing. You use what you have, and it's just a matter of that aha moment, I guess, or that light bulb that switches on and says, actually, let's use what's here to make this happen.
And I guess it's the simplicity, as you say, because sometimes we think it has to be something that's going to revolutionize our whole way of life, but it's the little things, and collectively then they impact and they change how we live, in fact.
Yeah, I mean, just before we got cut off there, one of the ideas I was telling you about was this young woman who, noticed that in the school there was a problem, and all she needed to do, she noticed that the reason why a lot of the kids weren't taking up the lunch was because they were ashamed of, the stigma that's attached to the fact that their families cannot afford to give them food. So what she decided to do was to just get everyone in the school a branded lunchbox with the school's emblem, so that everyone has the same lunchbox. So in the morning, all the kids drop off their lunchboxes there, their empty lunchboxes at the kitchen, and then during lunch, everyone has lunch in the same lunchbox. So no one can tell the difference who has been able to bring lunch from home and who doesn't have. So it's just, that idea of something so simple, of recognizing the fact that, yes, maybe, food is an issue, but what about the sense of self-worth that goes with children who come from homes who don't have anything. So it's that, that kind of thinking that we really need in the continent, I guess.
Oh, wow. Something so simple. So simple. What are some of the other been born out of the continent that have really changed the world?
Some of the ideas, it's, for example, the Nollywood, Nigeria's film and video industry. I'm not sure if a lot of people know that Nollywood produces more films than Hollywood.
Really?
Wow. They produce at least 3,000 movies a year.
3,000?
Yeah, that's more than Bollywood and the United States can manage to do. And the thing about Nigeria, about the fact that Nollywood came out of Nigeria, is that when you think of Nigeria, a lot of people would often think of the corruption that's happened there and the fact that they haven't really managed to crack the code of connecting the oil wealth and the standard of living for a lot of, but Nollywood has certainly brought a new kind of attention to Nigeria that's not negative. I mean, how many South Africans are glued to African magic every night? So that's really something that's a purely African idea that's infiltrated. I mean, the idea of making very low budget movies, and the whole thing of, the stories always carry some lessons with them. And I mean, movies are really a powerful medium of passing on certain messages.
So there's something in this model, there's something in their processes that is helping to drive the economy in the way that it has.
Absolutely. I mean, they've managed to crack they've managed to put together a really good formula with regards to that. And I think what's even more important about it is the fact that it's Africans telling African stories in African context. It's a great way of us learning about each other. I mean, it's a powerful medium to use. And obviously not forgetting the fact that movies make a lot of money. Movies make a lot of money. I mean, how much money does Hollywood rake in every year?
Yes.
So you can just imagine that.
Wow. No, wonderful accolade there for Nigeria.
For absolute Nigeria. And coming back home, one of the other ideas that I had was the idea of Ubuntu. This concept of the fact that I am what I am because of who we all are. And I think as much as it's for a lot of us, it's a way, look, in the Western world, that's not, the culture is not based on this idea of communal living. And we've imported the idea. I mean, I think former American President Bill Clinton once mentioned it in his address, that he once made a reference saying society is important because of Ubuntu, and he actually mentioned the word Ubuntu. Talking about this idea that we can't exist alone, and that as people we are all interconnected, and that's obviously the foundation of how a lot of African communities are built, and it's something really positive that the continent can contribute to the rest of the world.
So we've exported it and it's catching on around the world, and yet value, or we don't give it the value that it deserves. So it's interesting that we always look for value to be attached to something by people elsewhere before we actually do it, even though it's always been there and it's been a part of us for so long.
Yeah, and I mean, it is a great concept. The idea that, as human beings we're connected to each other, and that obviously it promotes the idea of generosity, and a lot of things in the world could have been avoided if we
just applied
this concept.
Yes. So you've given us a different, very different types of examples, from a concept, an ethos, a philosophy, to an actual, to actual technology, and then of course a process as well that has proven to be quite innovative. So it's a broad how innovation and creativity can be born and then go on to impact the world. So that's quite fascinating that it's not confined to just technology.
No, absolutely not. I mean, there's also one idea called the narrative exposure therapy, that was tried out in Uganda. During the Civil War in Uganda, more than 25,000 children ended up being child soldiers, often being subjected to having to kill their own families. And when that ended, obviously a lot of them were left with, quite hectic post-traumatic stress disorder. So what some therapists there came up with was this idea of using storytelling as a way of helping them to deal with what they had to live through while they were child soldiers. It uses the idea of creating fiction out of a real life situation as a way of coming to terms with it. Wow. So they're taken through that kind of therapy. So it's kind of like not outright therapy where you're sitting with a therapist and you're talking about your story, but using the tradition of oral storytelling, which is quite big in Uganda. So they help the children through that process by using what they know, which is a lot of them had grown up with listening to these stories being told in their families. So using that same process to help them to deal with these with what they had to witness.
So the narrative exposure therapy.
Yes.
And of course, it can be modeled, used in other places where there's been these sort of traumatic incidences.
In the South African context, we have a very high rate of rapes and children being exposed to violence. It would be a great way here as well to explore that. I mean, when you look at young children have very active imagination, so you can use that process as a way of helping them to make sense of what's happening in the world around them, and also to deal with obviously the trauma of what they've witnessed.
Yeah, Nelisa, in the past we've tried to reverse and to undo the narrative that says that we have been given what we have by the rest of the world, and that as Africans we haven't contributed much. So this is definitely a step in the right direction in terms of rewriting this narrative, and of course saying to the next generation of young people that in fact you can believe and you can actually change and transform the world.
No, absolutely. I mean, it's when you look at the stats, majority in the next 20, 30 years, majority of the population in the continent will be under 35. Mm-hmm. So it's our time.
No.
Definitely our time.
Great note to end it off on. In fact, there's a compliment also coming your way via Twitter. Josh says, big up to Activate ZA for great initiative. And he also wants to know how he can share ideas. Are there details on your website on how people can join the program?
Yes, people can go to our website, www.activateleadership.co.za. They can read all about us and what other young people are actually doing there. I mean, our website is basically just, gives a good sense of what activators are up to and what they're thinking. So if you're a young person, go there and have a look what other young people are doing around the country.
Wonderful. Nelisa, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Nelisa, who is the Communications Officer at Activate. That web address again is www.activateleadership.co.za if you want to take a closer look. Maybe you know a young person who is very active, who's creative, who is very involved. This might be the platform that they need as an outlet and to connect with other young people. And of course, it's not just restricted to urban youngsters. They are present right across the 9 provinces, from cities to rural areas, across various races, classes, cultures, religions, and education levels. It's just a melting pot, a slice of South Africa's young people. Some are employed, others are volunteers. It really would be inspiring, to connect and hear the stories of people of how they are saying to young people and bringing them together, but saying, be creative, look for the challenges, be the solution in your society. And also, of course, looking at Africa's the ideas that have been born out of this continent and the innovations that have actually changed the world. It's time for Power